Hello and welcome to Just Hoops. The Miami Heat have a top 5 to 10 defense in basketball. I think it's time to dive into their zone and what they do at this end of the floor that has made them disruptive and special. They have a 111.2 defensive rating, which is top 5 to 10, varying between games. They're giving up a high effective field goal percentage, but their ability to force turnovers, rebound at a high level, and just be active is what's making them so good. But let's look at the zone stats. If these were their defensive stats, they'd be the number 1 defense in the league, holding teams to 0.9 points per possession, shooting 51.2 effective field goal percentage, 13.4 turnover percentage, and only scoring under 40% of the time. So let's look at this zone and see what they do in it that makes it so hard for offenses to score. So to start, the first thing I want to dive into is the alignment of the zone. So positioning wise, we'll have a tandem at the top of the 2-3 zone. We'll have wings high and wide and the center floating in the middle of the floor. Here against Brooklyn, it's a great example. We have Victor Oladipo and Gabe Vincent tandeming at the top, Max Strus, Tyler Hero on the wings, and Bam Adebayo in the middle of the floor. Just a good example of how they align within this zone before we dive into responsibilities a little bit more. So with the tandem, you can see that they really do apply pressure to the ball. The wings are very high, wide. They're matching up more so than just being in a spot. It's more of a matchup zone, amoeba moving, just to allow the big man to float in the middle. Whatever they have to do to apply pressure at the point, and then also allow Bam or whoever's in the game in the middle to float and be a center hold to this defense is what they're going to do. The top is responsible for everything above the break, and the wings are responsible for everything below the break and for bumping at the 45, and they're responsible for anything else inside the paint. Bam is responsible as the last line guy, or the center is responsible for the back, while the wings will have to adjust, get the high post sometimes, go to the corners, just play based on the alignment of the offense. They match up, they communicate, and that's what makes this zone so cool. And another thing is with who they put in spots. They like hiding wings, so usually typically slower guys or even like guys that just aren't as good one-on-one defenders are going to be on the wings, while the top of the zone is going to be lengthy, athletic, versatile defenders, and then in the middle is going to be the center, whether it's Bam, Orlando Robinson, or Dwayne Dedmon. That's who's going to be sitting in the middle of the zone, commanding and anchoring this defense. Now, let's talk about the top of the zone, the tandem. These guys are responsible for pressuring at the point, matching up anything in the middle third or just above the break, and just being pests on the ball. They play off of each other. It's typically very matchup based at the top, where they're on a string together, getting in the gap, pressuring the ball, getting back in the gap when the ball goes to the other slot, and just being the pressure points of this defense, where they're going to get up into the ball, be the guys that set the tone for the rest of the defense. And they do a really good job with who they put up there, having Highsmith, having Oladipo, having just all these versatile, lengthy defenders to throw at the top of the zone. Jamal Cain is a two-way guy that they have that they're allowed to put up there also. Just having guys that could pressure the ball, play off of each other, and be the head of the snake within this zone. These next two clips, let's focus on how they tandem. First guy's pressuring the ball, the second guy's responsible for the nail area, and then they switch in actions. They're just playing off of each other, and that responsibility to first get the ball, be activated there, and the second guy load the nail is what is really interesting in how they position. They also really do a good job at communicating with the wings in terms of when they're going to match up with the ball, when they're going to bump the wing down, and when they're going to allow the wing to guard and they're going to load the elbows. Here against the Lakers, they did a good job with Oladipo loading the nails, and these last two I really want to focus on that bump. They're responsible for everything above the break, and they win out and contested these shots on the wing because they are versatile, lengthy, and athletic guys that they put at the top, able to fly around and make plays. Now onto the unsung heroes of the zone, the wings. This first clip against Brooklyn, I really want to look at how they position based on matching up. They're high, close to the elbows against Brooklyn here, but you can see Max Strus is all the way in at the elbow guarding Kevin Durant. And then he figures out, oh, there's a baseline cut, I need to switch out with Bam. And then Jimmy is bumped off the 45, getting down low, and then forcing a turnover. Just the movement in which they play so freely and they have to cover so much space. Here against the Suns, you can see Strus and Vincent are playing a gap area almost, and they know where their guys are, but then Strus has to make a play first at the 45, and then he puts himself in a position to drop off of a bump. Here against the Clippers, Duncan Robinson and Max Strus do a tremendous job on the wings. The tandem is pressuring the point, doing their job, but you can see Max and Duncan are playing very high, shrinking in. They're just moving and covering space with length. They're just trying to be disruptive as they could, while also being in positions to help stop the ball, contest shots, disruption. Just being able to fly around on the wings, rebound, and also just be in the gaps, just being in spots to make the offense harder to get where they want to get the shots that they want to get, and just make them hesitate a little bit. Jimmy did a great job there at cutting off a passing lane and then just being in a spot to disrupt Kendrick Nunn on the wing. Here against the Suns, we're going to get Max Strus active, Gabe Vincent's high and wide on the weak side, and then strong side, he's putting himself in a spot to stop the drive, and then Max contests the shot. Just being valuable in terms of covering space and being disruptive. So now let's talk about the last line of the zone, the center. Bam, Dedmon, and Orlando Robinson. Whoever is back there, their primary role is to protect the paint, and how they do it is based on matching up with the lowest guy on the floor or the guy closest in the lane. Bam here was matched up with Longdale, and then in the ball screen he dropped, able to play both and just protect the rim. In these plays, you can see that Bam or whoever's in at center does a really good job at covering the strong side of the floor, being a shadow, and just always putting himself in a spot to try to take away the rim for the strong or advantageous side of the floor. He's going to put himself in a spot where the offense has numbers. So if a side is loaded, he's going to put himself there to cover that side and then try to make a play in the paint. There against the Lakers, his positioning forced a three-point shot just because he's covering the paint. Here against the Suns, you can see he's on the strong side of the floor, floats to the middle, and then contests the floater. Just putting himself in a spot to cover the middle, prevent easy layups, and then also he matches up with whoever is in the paint. Here against the Clippers, Zubac dives, he matches up with him, does a solid job, and contests the hook shot. Here, Orlando Robinson does a really good job at matching in the middle of the floor, covering space, and then when the ball's in the middle, everybody else fans out, and it's one-on-one with the big man. They do a great job at just allowing the big man to cover the middle of the floor, protect the rim, and be that last line safety to just make plays deep in the paint. As we've been talking about throughout this video, the disruptiveness and connectivity of this defense is what allows them to be so good. One little thing that they do before falling back into the zone is a 2-2-1 press that you just saw here against Brooklyn, and then it falls right back into the zone. In terms of pressure, you can see that the ball is that point. The ball is always picked up, and outside of that, they do a really good job at just being in gaps, being in spots where the offense is not getting the look that they want. They also have variability within the zone. The tandem is allowed to apply pressure, trap. The wings are able to get high, deny, and here against Oklahoma City, that was a great example, trapping the ball late shot clock. Here in these next few clips, you'll see the tandem really does set the tone. They allow the tandem to pinch in the middle third, fly around, play off of each other, force turnovers, be active in the gaps. Just being pests on the point makes it so hard for offenses against the zone to find rhythms, find cracks, get openings, get in the paint, and do things that usually break a zone. But the activity, length, and disruptiveness at the top just sets the tone and makes it so difficult for offense to be able to do these things. Here against the Suns, you'll see that same thing. The tandem at the top is matching up, flying around, and they end up forcing another turnover. But the connectivity within this defense, understanding where they need to be, communicating, matching up always at the point, being in spots to take away easy drives. The big man in the middle of the floor does a good job at sinking back and preventing easy rim opportunities, but just being in spots, covering so much area, and also communicating through it and rebounding at a high level. This zone's connectivity is what allows it to be special, and then off of that, the pressure that they apply across the floor, the effort that they display is just what makes it so hard for offenses to find cracks, find openings, and makes plays against this zone. The Miami Heat have the highest usage zone in the NBA, and it's because it's so disruptive. It's so good, it prevents offenses from getting easy looks on a nightly basis, and it's also just something in their back pocket that has so many different looks with how they apply pressure, how they put people in spots, and just making offenses work harder. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, learned something about the Miami Heat's defense and their zone. For more content like this, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you in the next one.